Welcome to Show Me the Money with Michael Dirk. Show Me the Money is a podcast that is bringing in industry leaders in the commercial real estate sector that are either on the financing side, the development side, the acquisition side, disposition, brokers, investors, bankers, management companies, everyone that's in and out of the business and all facets of the trade, so that hopefully you can benefit if you're looking to grow your business, start your business, or maybe transition into something else. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Show Me the Money with Michael Dirk. Today, we have a guest, very special guest named Rick Hoegler. Rick is the CEO and president of Pan American Properties, and so we're excited to have Rick on the show. Rick, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike.
Rick started his career at Pan American as the property's office manager. As his training in the industry deepened, he shifted into property management role where he learned to be sensitive to the details and make a property successful. Rick's father, Rich, God rest his soul, started Pan American, and Rick took over as president in 2016. Rick has focused on transforming Pan American into a technology-driven, financially sophisticated property management firm. At the same time, he shares his father's relationships led to great outcomes for everyone involved. Rick holds a BA in Business Administration from Cal State Fullerton and is a certified property manager. So Rick, thank you again for being here on the show. We've known each other for a long time. I'm excited to have you here, talk about the market, talk about business, as everything has been very dynamic and changing, especially as of late. So let's just jump right into it.
Let's do it.
All right. Pan America is somewhat unique in what you have as a robust property management team, but you have also handled renovations and construction. So can you tell us a little bit about the difference of your construction versus management duties and kind of where things are and where you're perceiving them to go?
Yeah, sure. So the whole reason that exists, Mike, is that, back, many, many years ago, I just got tired of getting the runaround from vendors, pricing, material delays, this, that, and the other. So, we had the brainstorm of, let's just start off with some maintenance people that are roving and, can help our clients, get things done, on time, within budget, et cetera. And that's really ballooned into, we've got 65 guys now, all over Southern California, and we are licensed general contractors as well. So we can kind of run the gamut from, portering all the way up through, renovations and ADUs. So the reason that we felt that it was a good fit was, again, just delivering on time, getting things done at a reasonable price, and really having control over it. That's I think, a big part, especially today in today's environment. Things are so finite, and moving very quickly. That you've got to be able to execute. And I know that our team can, and they've been, coached to do that and do it well.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned ADUs, and a lot of the projects we work on and underwrite for sponsors, and a lot of the brokers out there are pitching deals and saying the pro forma on these properties now is ADUs.
Right.
And we're dealing with so many different issues right now across the income and expense sideline of these properties, primarily on I'm going to say both sides. Income, God forbid in California, if Prop 33 passes, that's going to be a complete game changer overnight that everyone's very concerned. I was at the Globe Street Multifamily Conference up in Los Angeles last week, and we had dinner with several clients that probably control almost 20,000 units in the state of California, and there's heavy concern. So we're hoping that does not pass, and then also Prop 34 does pass on that side of things, so that this initiative is not going to be on the foreseeable future. But so ADUs and building that, have you been successful in ventures in adding those to properties? I mean, because it seems like as though adding that NOI to the bottom line on an accretive basis, and then also adding that structure to the property, where the cities seem to be very, I guess, loose with their abilities to approve these. If you could just touch on that a little bit. People are very interested in those ADUs, and a lot of people feel like it's impossible to do, or some people are like, oh, that's easy,
Sure.
Just go ahead and add it. So what's the real story there, Rick?
Yeah. So let me back up for just a minute, just because I think it is important to, especially if the real estate's in Southern California, to look at, not only the feasibility of the ADU, but what does it do to the other residents? A lot of operators are doing like garage conversions or carport conversions. And while that may, really drive the NOI, it also could actually have a contra effect, which is what are your existing units going to do when they don't have parking? Is that going to actually negatively impact those market rents? And the answer is it very well could. So for most of the ADUs that we've been doing, we're taking and we're focusing more on that clubhouse that's not used anymore, that maintenance shop that back in the 70s, everybody did, all of their work in this shop and it was relatively large. We're looking at converting those types of spaces to just more, producing type, environments than just sitting there collecting dust. So that's
Right.
really where we've been really successful in doing them. As to the city, it varies by where you are. Some of them are a little bit easier, but I'm going to say, generally speaking, none of them are easy. Everybody kind of went through this. The government here in California, everybody's loosening things up. They're going to make it easier. They just passed another thing out here to even expand that to allow even more units. So it's not easy. You need the right team. And
Right.
I think that's really where, a firm like ourselves or whoever your clients are looking to use, really make sure that the design team, the architectural team, and the construction company are all really well integrated, because
Okay.
that's going to really make or break your deal.
Right.
ADUs can be, relatively reasonable in price and make all the sense in the world. And then they can get really out of hand if you've got people that really aren't glued together and really know that space and what they're doing.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, because a lot of people come out there and they try and be the professional and or that know all these different variables, and the engineers, the architects, all those, like we were talking about. If you don't have the right team in place for whatever you're doing in life, not only just this,
Yes.
it's a recipe for disaster. It takes more time, more money, and those obviously could be a make or break on a successful project or not. And I know
Correct.
I've been to many of your projects, Rick, and you guys have done a phenomenal job on management, repositioning. And so I know that ADUs are such a hot button now. There's such a demand for housing, especially affordable housing. So some of these ADUs, I mean, on a project that I'm currently invested in right now, we're adding ADUs at like 200 square feet, and the rent per square foot is massive,
Yeah.
right? And the bottom line, adding that NOI to the bottom line, and the cost to add these ADUs, I don't know, somewhere between 150 to 200
Hmm.
grand to add these structures is kind of the range, depending on the city and all those variables. And you're adding value, maybe 300 to 400 grand on a price per unit to the actual bottom line of the real estate. It makes complete sense on top of the cash flow
Yep.
you're getting.
And
So
I
the
think,
short
Mike,
term
you
pain,
you
yeah,
mentioned something there that I think is very interesting, which is, your footages, right? I think a lot of people get caught up in, well, if I'm going to build a unit, it needs to be 500 feet. It needs to be a minimum of a one bedroom. To
right,
your point, it needs to it needs to lay out well.
right,
Okay, so studios are just fine. A lot of people, that's all they want. That's all they need. They
yes,
don't have a lot of stuff,
right,
right? They just want a well located, well done unit. So I
yes,
would just say, to your listeners too, don't get so caught up in, well, it's not going to be marketable. It is, because to your point, you need housing, right? And
right.
a 200 square foot unit you may not live in, but somebody may think that's just absolutely perfect for their living situation.
Absolutely. And, I'm also investing some units down in Long Beach by the water there. And some of
Hmm.
those units are even less than those, not ADUs, just basic units. And those are a
Sure.
little less than 200, but they have high ceilings. So if you have
Yep.
higher ceilings on units too, it feels so much bigger. Like all of the newer properties that like Irvine Company and all these other large developers are building, they build way smaller units, but the ceilings are so high. So it feels
Right.
so much bigger versus you go next door to a 600 square foot unit that has 7 foot ceilings, and you walk in there and
Right.
you feel claustrophobic.
Yep.
So there's
Yep.
different ways and concepts, like you were saying, as long as it's laid out right, good amenities, good quality, people are looking for that.
Yes.
And so,
Absolutely.
and I think it's key. A lot of people miss it where sometimes depending on the market, where parking is or isn't important, right? A lot
Hmm.
of the younger generation, some of them Uber everywhere. Some of them are riding bikes, some of them are walking to work. But in other places that are very driven based on an automobile or transportation, that parking space is important, and you're going to have more turnover, which is obviously something you don't want to be disrupting the cash flow, which hurts the overall value of the asset.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
Rick, moving into common challenges that owners are facing today, what are you seeing and what are you hearing from your clients? What are their biggest challenges that they're facing with today, and how are you dealing with it?
Yeah, so a lot of it's collection based. You know what I mean? There's people are hurting out there, Mike. I mean, it's not, a lot of people want to prop the economy up and say, things are doing well, especially in the more, kind of blue collar environments. People are struggling to make ends meet. So, collections is a challenge.
Right,
So I would say that, and what we're doing about it is, really being in communication with the resident. Don't let anybody go dark. What are you doing? Can we work out a payment plan? In some cases, because rents have, slid a bit, depending on your market that you're in, they may be paying a good rent, compared to what your re-rent rate might be. So it behooves you to work with them and see if you can work something out to keep them in there and, maybe make payments or something of that nature. We also have got some technology that we've been using, some third parties. One of them is called Flex, which is great that they can basically they will pay the rent for the resident and the resident makes payments to Flex. So it's what we've done is we've made sure that our late fees are high enough to where the fee that Flex is charging is lower. And then now, say, for example, a resident gets paid twice a month, they can make two rent payments to Flex, but Flex has already paid us the full rent payment at the beginning of the month. So
oh,
we're
that's
not
great.
having to chase people. We're able to, and we're seeing a huge uptick in those types of technologies being used because, again, people are so paycheck to paycheck.
Right,
This helps them out. So it's a win-win, right? We're helping the resident, and in turn, we're getting that rent up front and not having to spend the time, chasing them for it.
right,
So I would say that qualified applicants, that's a big challenge right now too. So I would really, encourage any operators out there to really be watching your not only your credit, because a lot of people's credit did get dunged pretty significantly during COVID and whatnot, and maybe it was for right reasons, maybe it was just a bad situation they got themselves in. But watching your credit and watching your income to rent ratios. So we're constantly monitoring that just to make sure that, okay, are we responding to market condition? Are we still getting those right applicants in there? So that way we're not overdoing it on the risk side, but at the same time we're also not passing by plenty of really relatively good qualified applicants waiting for that unicorn that may never come.
right,
So I would say that, and then the third would probably be expense control. Still, inflation's still there. Nothing is reduced in price. Everything went up and kind of then is kind of bouncing around those price points. So it's really watching. What are we spending on? Why are we spending it? Should we repair? Should we replace? And those are some of the conversations that we're really having with our clients too, to kind of just properly navigate the assets on the go forward, based on the current conditions.
right. Yeah, those are all excellent points. I mean, we're seeing it. I mean, I'm on the financing side, but I also obviously I'm on the investment side as well. And across the board, we're seeing expenses go up pretty significantly.
Hmm.
The rents overall, there's been a struggle on that, and we're starting
Yes.
to see from the management side of the operations the income relative to the rent, right, going up as a percentage. Historically used to be 25-30% of your income to rent.
Hmm.
Now I'm hearing from a lot of clients, and we're seeing some cases up to 50 to 60% in some cases to rent units. So are you seeing that as well?
Yeah. So what we've been doing is really on a daily basis, we're checking our reports to see, okay, what activity are we getting, and do we need to be making in-flight adjustments, right? Like the days of, well, let's let it sit for a month and see what happens. Those are gone. Our clients are very much repositioning to more cash driven, like let's not worry about value enhancement right now. Let's worry about getting income in.
Okay.
So we're really correcting on kind of a day-to-day basis, depending on the market. What kind of traffic have we gotten? What do we need to adjust? Do we need to offer a special? Do we need to increase that special a little bit? We're also using a technology that really allows for remote leasing to happen, so that way people can tour when they want, instead of being subjected to people and their availability as to leasing agents and whatnot, which has also, I think, really proven itself to be extremely valuable. And when you're looking at just as yourself, for example, busy guy, if you're really wanting to look at an apartment and you've got two to choose from, which one is the most accommodating to you that you can get in and tour? And then how can I apply? How can I do the entire process online instead of having to, go here, go there, and all of this other good stuff? So we've been very sensitive to that. People don't have a lot of spare time right now, so we're really trying to cater to that and make sure that they are, we're meeting the need of when they want to tour, following up. And again, I don't want to bore you with the details, but we can certainly speak to any of your viewers about how we're doing that in a safe way and using some technology with smart lock boxes and things of that nature. That's pretty cool.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's a thing of the past where people are driving around looking at signs to rent. Now it seems like everyone's online doing these things.
That's it.
And
Absolutely. It's if you're not online and if you cannot facilitate your transaction soup to nuts online, you're probably losing your best qualified candidates out there, because that's what they're looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have some homes here in Nashville that were for rent for a while. And I kept talking to the management company about they got to get the signs out there, got to get the signs out there. And they kept yelling at me like, "You're not going to rent with the signs." And I'm like,
That's
"Why?
right.
These are great homes. Why wouldn't someone want to just drive by and see it?" And they said,
Yeah.
everyone's online. And that was the same case. And it really
Prospects,
helped.
man, they look at two things. That's it. If they show up to two physical buildings, that's a lot. They've already pre-screened everything online. They know exactly what they want to go see.
Okay.
Time is, a value to everybody these
Right.
days. So they want to go in, it's a yes or a no, and then they want to take that next step. So
Got it. Okay. Moving on, Rick. What are the biggest challenges you face in renovations of different projects today, especially when it comes to cost, quality, and timelines?
yeah, so a lot of that depends on permitted versus non-permitted work, right? If you're going to involve the cities in any way, that really kind of throws a wrench in the works, because they're on their timeline, and you have to kind of bake in for delays when it comes to working your way through the cities, depending on the level of renovation or ADU or whatnot that you're doing. The other piece to that is that again, costs. It's the cost controls, making sure that when we do bid something, we have to put a limiter on it of 15 days that bid is good for, because material prices are still changing very quickly. In some cases, maybe coming down a bit, but in most cases, they're still going up. There's still availability issues, supply chain issues, especially when it comes to electric, where we've had to put meter stacks in and things of that nature. I mean, that's taking a while. Edison is taking, down here in Southern California. So if you're dealing with Edison or really any power company, again, they're on their timeline. So while you may have everything ready, like right now, I'm waiting for a building to get powered up right now. And it was, okay, well, this is when we can get there. And there's not a whole lot you're going to do to push them. So just need to make sure that you're ready and have qualified people that are really dotting the I's and crossing the T's, doing pre-inspections. If you do have the city involved, like, hey, let's walk through, let's just make sure that we have everything that you want done, so that when we do flip the switch or when we do get to that point, we're ready to go and we're not just sitting there waiting. I think a lot of people today are, taking more of a reactive approach. I think that's kind of society's gotten to where it's like, well, when something happens, then we make an action. We try to do it more of, let's be ahead of it, figure out what are the potential objections, get those solved, so that when we do get to the finish line, we're ready to go and we can start leasing right away.
Right. That's excellent. And I can't echo that enough. I think just in any business, though, especially what you're doing, to be proactive versus reactive. I can't tell you how many clients, just like the dip in interest rates we had over the last 3, 4 weeks ago, and so many clients were jumping in and boom, 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 and other clients were like, "Okay, let me get my stuff together now that we've talked about, earlier this
Right.
year and whatnot." And they're like, "Okay, we'll get you all the information. We got it, say a few days ago, and it's already been 2 weeks." And I'm like, well, rates have jumped by 30 or 40 bips. So, it's just to be proactive, to be ready, to be on your toes instead of on your heels in any form or facet of this business. Like the same thing for Prop 33 coming up for people that have been, behind the eight ball as far as raising the rents or getting the rents to
Yes.
market. I mean, if this Prop 33 passes, depending on the city or municipality, they, they could do anything. They can
Right.
possibly tell you that you can't raise your rents anymore. And what's the value of that unit now that's 20
Correct.
or 30% below market? It's going to be such a drastic effect on the values of these properties, and I feel bad for people that just don't even realize that. And I know the investment brokerage community, we work very closely with not only the teams at Marcus and Millichap, but all other firms, and we do everything we can to educate them. But people are like, well, they don't like to move until they have to, and I just I hope the best for them. But again, being proactive on that case is just so imperative.
Michael,
So,
I've got an interesting just little story on that. I've got a client that was very, inherited properties, and he was always of the mindset of, just keep it full. I don't want to raise my rents on my existing residence, et cetera, et cetera. Well, then inflation kicks in, and guess what happened? Now, all of a sudden, the cash flow evaporated because we weren't keeping up with market and we weren't keeping up with inflation, right? So
right,
your expenses rise, your income is not. So you're actually, kind of doing yourself a disservice and your heirs a disservice, because now if they do look to sell or refi, how are they going to do that if, you're not marked to market? And one of the things we like to do is, we include our owners for the most part, those that want to be included, some don't, but on the rent increases, and we have that dialogue and just go, hey, let's renew X number. Here's the reason why behind it. And our system actually sends out the recommendations where they can either override or we can have a conversation on it. And if they click approve, it immediately goes into action, so that way, again, we're meeting that need. The tenant is notified. The tenant has options to choose from, so that way we're staying in front of that instead of, being so reactive like you're talking about now. It's just the alert people and firms out there are going to be the ones that win.
right, of course. Rick, moving on to your company, Pan American, couple things. What does the culture look like there, and what do you look like? What do you look for when hiring an individual? And as the market, is it difficult to find good people today?
So I would call our culture fun but intense. So we like to work. I think everybody does. They want to work with people they like working with, but at the same time, there's an intensity level to where good enough isn't. And we need to make sure that we are constantly, on the forefront, whether it's technology, whether it's working with our, clients, what can we be doing better? What new, ideas are out there in the way of construction? What are people, trending? What colors do they want? I mean, all the way down to the very minor details of how do we make sure that a Pan American managed asset is a step above the competition. So that's tough because some people like to take more of a laissez-faire approach in their job, and fortunately that's just not the way we work. So as to finding people, it's tough. I mean, there are people out there now, whereas before several months ago, it was very difficult to just find anybody qualified. Now you're starting to see that soften up a little bit to where you are seeing qualified people on paper. But then when it comes to work ethic, right? And that's something that I think, both you and I share, in common and have appreciated about one another is that, hey, whatever it takes, that's what we do.
Right.
But this newer generation that's coming up, I listened to a gentleman the other day that said, we're having to educate them on how to be in a business environment. And that was something that we didn't really have to spend time on, before. So I think there's a lot more going into the new team members, about educating them and, on not only acceptable behavior, because this isn't social media where you can just, say something and there's, maybe no ramification. It's words matter.
Right.
So really looking at that, but ultimately it's, we go through it. We kiss a lot of frogs until we find prince and princesses around here.
Sure.
So we're constantly looking for those people that are those rising stars and have that work ethic and appreciate that a more intense environment to work in.
Sure. Yeah. No, those are all great words of wisdom there for sure. And, next point, what advice would you give to younger people in the industry that want to say, hey, I want to start working in commercial real estate in some form or fashion? What advice would you give them today, obviously based on your long, expansive career and seeing your dad growing up and whatnot in the
Yep.
business? What would you say, Rick?
Yeah. So it's really basic, man. It's talk to people. We don't do that enough anymore. You and I were chatting about that a little bit earlier about, just connection. You've got to, I've never found anybody that I've ever approached that I showed an interest in what they do and whatnot, ever shirking away from being a fully open book about, hey, this is what I would do again, or this is what I feel I did right or didn't do right or whatever. So I think that, I would really just challenge people to just, get into those environments that you have like-minded people of industries that you want to be a part of
Right.
and talk to them. You know what I mean? Like, I can't imagine anybody coming up to you, Mike, saying, hey, I'm really interested in what you do. And you saying, yeah, beat it. You know what I mean? It's, hey, we want to share that knowledge, to the next generation. And I think that, the next generation needs to be a better steward of that and realizing that, like, hey, yeah, ask the question and these guys will tell you what it's all about. So I would say that. I would say also that really understanding well how properties work. I don't think a lot of people really understand that anymore, Mike, to where it's, they come in. If you want to be in real estate, really understand it, learn it almost from the ground up.
Right.
Um, are you getting a fair deal from a contractor? Do you know that? I mean, my dad had me out there working on the weekends when I was in grade school, for crying out loud. You know what I
Right.
mean?
I love
So
that.
I know how to, what something needs or what it requires or how much cost is involved and whatnot. Is that a fair deal or not? So the only way I learned that was by going through it. So
Right.
I think that, it's start humbly and work your way up, right? Like, just learn from whoever you can. And then also understand, that especially when it comes to real estate, there is a lot more to it than cash flow and value enhancement. It's the tax benefits. It's, all of those different things. It's the tangibility of it versus, saying, stocks and mutual funds. And while those are great, run on two tracks, and understand really the value of real estate, from all facets, not just from an income generation or a value enhancement. Um, and then just understand that it's going to take a while. You know what I mean? I think patience is something that people need to understand today, is that you're not going to know everything today, and that's okay. You know what I
No.
mean? That's part of the journey, right? Like, I'm learning new stuff all the time, and
Right.
that's part of why I love doing what I do.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Literally, after being in this business now for almost 26 years, I literally am still learning every day.
Yeah.
And it's so dynamic and changing every day. And that's the one thing I tell younger people who are starting in the business. I always, a lot of people I've mentored over the years, that you just better be a sponge every day and get ready to work, get knocked down, and stand back up and learn from the mistakes, and you'll be fine in the business. And it's going to be a lot of highs and lows in this business. You just hope you're having more highs than lows, obviously, to have a successful career. And
Yep.
that's
Absolutely.
and that's what it takes. And a
Yep.
lot of the younger people too, like we were talking about, in saying it's thinking about vacation days and things like that. I know you, Rick, as I was too, like growing up, and even today, to take that time off. As much as you want to spend time, I think it's good to spend quality time with family and friends and whatnot, but it comes at a cost, right? And so
Right.
you obviously have to keep working hard day in and day out, and making sure the weekends, the nights, the early mornings, whatever it takes to be successful, going to those extra conferences, going to those meetings, going the extra mile, showing up for clients like what you and I were just talking about, and the fact that I don't allow any third party engineers or inspectors to go to the
Hmm.
property without me or someone from my team there to assess the situation and making sure all questions are answered, and we make sure that everything is assessed properly instead of leaving things to chance. That's the recipe for disaster, is leaving things to chance, because then it's just, okay, maybe we're successful, maybe not. Those coin flips, the coin eventually falls, and that's where success, falls with it.
That's
So
right.
yeah, so moving in, Rick, is everyone has highs and lows in the career. The best part of the show I like talking about. If you can give us a success story in your career, and then also if you can tell us about a time you fell down, and more importantly, how you got back up. If you can kind of touch on those for us, please, and tell the
Sure.
listeners.
Yeah. So we'll start on the high of the success. So COVID was obviously a very challenging environment, as we all know. You know, we had two properties that we actually tax deferred exchanged into during that time. And that was, as you know, Mike, in the lending environment. I mean, everybody was like, what is going on? Are we going to even see tomorrow, let alone lending and doing all of this other good stuff?
Right.
So we were able to, again, through a lot of late nights and tenacity and hard work and whatnot, able to get both of those properties through that gauntlet, get them repositioned. They were both receiver deals, so they took a special lender, they took some special skills, on our side of things and whatnot, and we had a huge inflationary environment that we were dealing with, and all kinds of different challenges. But as of today, both of them are done. We've got them leased up, and that was a huge learning experience for us. But again, we stuck with it, where I think a lot of others perhaps might not have, and said this just isn't worth it. That's not how we treat our clients. You know what I mean? We're going to do whatever it takes to get things through to the other end. So that was a huge recent success that was very gut wrenching going through the process, but very satisfying now that we're looking at it from the other side.
That's great.
Kind of going to what your comments earlier, right? It's just you don't know until you know, right? And then it's
Right.
just keep going, keep moving forward, keep
Right.
putting one foot in front of the other, and at some point you'll look back and go, wow, look at how far we've come, or look at what we were able to accomplish together. So, and that
Right.
was a group effort. I mean, that took a lot of us here, trying to figure out how we were going to make that happen, and we were able to. So that was great. As far as learning experiences are concerned, really to what we talked about earlier, Mike, every day is a learning experience. I think what I've probably learned more than anything else, during the 30 years that I've been doing this, everybody loves to grow, but you need to grow right. And if you and your clients are not in alignment, as I'm sure, Mike, you've experienced, that there's probably some that you just, whatever you tried, you can't get that right alignment there, that
Right.
you have to say, you have to cut the cord and just say, this just isn't working. And, because it's no matter how hard you try, sometimes they're just not going to work. So I think that's probably, in my earlier years, it was grow, grow, grow at, pretty much any cost. And it took a toll not only on myself, but on others as well, because we weren't in alignment. We didn't have that proper vetting conversations, up front about, hey, what are your expectations? What are you looking to do? And make sure that we were, a good fit for them, and that the client was a good fit for us. So I would
Right.
say that those are, I've had to lick some pretty significant wounds, and I had some people that, really, almost were on the verge of burnout, because we just weren't able to meet and align with, that client expectation. So I would say that, as all of us, and especially the entrepreneurs that are listening to this, we all want to grow. We all want to, conquer that next hill. Assess, you know what I mean? Take a minute, and make sure that is worth the energy and the effort to get up that mountain. Or is
Oh,
there
yeah.
a better way, and maybe there's a bigger one, right behind it that you just don't see yet. So,
Absolutely. Yes. Well, those are all. I love hearing the story. I love hearing about the perseverance. I mean, that's what it takes. The
right.
grit, the perseverance, the
There you
constant
go.
hard.
I love that word, my grit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's, if anything, if anybody learns anything today, or, or that's listening, or it's grit, man. You gotta stay at it. Success is not overnight. You know what I mean? It takes a long time, and then before you know it, you're an executive director like you are, and doing deals all over the nation. You know what I mean? And that was by hard work, really, more than anything, I'm sure. So
Right. But again, it's also key about assembling the right people around you, like you said as
yes.
well, making sure you have a good team. Like I really pride myself on my team that's
Hmm.
been with me thick and thin for so many years. I'm so thankful for them every day, and they allow me to be successful for them, right? And we're successful for each other, and that's really what it comes down to. So it's imperative
That's
to
good leadership, Mike. I mean, at the end of the day, you know what I mean? I think that's what it really boils down to is, are you there for them? Because then they'll reciprocate and be there for you, right? It's not the
right.
other way around.
Absolutely.
And I look at your turnover. I mean, you don't turn, you know what I mean? Your people stay with you,
Right.
which is a huge testament to who you are as a leader, and, as their boss, right? So good for you. And that's what I would say also to anybody else that's listening. Like, look at the turnover, you know what I mean, of the company. My number two has been with me for 15 years, number three for 10 years. You know what I mean?
That's
Like
a big deal. Yeah.
it is. And I think that that's something that not many people, not to say that, some turn isn't good, but your key people, you really want to make sure that there's some longevity there, and they know
Absolutely.
they get to learn the client, they get to learn the culture really well, and now they can infuse that through the
Yes.
organization.
Absolutely. On a final note here, Rick, what are some of the goals for Pan American? What are maybe a couple goals as far as management for your team? Like what
Sure.
as far as your team and your business, and then on the investment side, what what are you looking for as far as buying, selling? What are your thoughts on that basis?
Yeah, sure. So we've actually been on the investment side in a bit of a holding pattern just to see where things shake out. We're value investors, as you know, Mike. So we're always looking to exploit that value. So we're starting to see some things that are starting to look a little bit more interesting now. And I think hopefully after the election and into 25, depending on what happens, we see a little bit more of kind of a return to business as usual, which would be great for
Right.
both of us.
Right.
So we're not, and I think that's something kind of unique about us is the tracks that we run on, because we're in management investments and in the general construction space. Is that I don't have to do a deal unless it's a deal, and that's I think kind of our claim to fame is that unless we see the right things, we're just not going to do it, because that's not how we get paid. That's more of a kind of a value enhancement, and really not our primary focus. Our focus has always been on the management piece. So as far as that's concerned, I think continued growth. We've been growing at a pretty good double digit, clip, year over year. So I think, proper growth and not growing too fast is very key. And again, growing with the right clients. So that's really what we're looking to do into 25, is to continue to, just develop relationships, find those right clients that are really a pleasure to work with, which we're very blessed that we have many of those that we really do enjoy working with and whatnot. And as far as the construction piece is concerned, we're adding services to our construction base all the time. So
That's
we
great.
now have in-house appliance people. We have in-house, cleaning crews and things of that nature. So again, we can control the quality, and we can control, the timing and all of that good stuff, so that we're really turning things over. As we say, I'm a big believer in, do what you say and say what you do, right?
Right.
So that's really what we're looking to do, and add a couple new people to the team, and that's really it, man. Just continue to
Right.
really enjoy what we do. So
Good. Well, that's great to hear, Rick. I wish you all continued success and your company and your future endeavors and your family. And thank you so much for being here today. Hopefully, the
no, it's my
listeners
pleasure.
took some words of wisdom here from many years of experience in and out. And I think people are going to be needing to utilize services that you have on the management side. Maybe they've been self-managing over many years because of the regulations and all the rules changing and insurance
Correct.
and all the variables. So hopefully they can take advantage of this. And listeners, I hope you had a great listen here, and hopefully you learned something. So that's what we're trying to do, is get the word out there, get the straight scoop of exactly what's going on with boots on the ground. So I hope everyone has a great day. And Rick, thank you again for joining us.
Thank
and
you,
we'll talk
Mike.
to you soon. Thank you. Take care.